Welcome back to Transport Fever 2 in this fictional French Alpine Sandbox build. We've built a steelworks and we've set up a coal line in the last episode. Today we are going to look at building an iron ore mine to supply the steelworks with its raw materials. I'm choosing this pristine spot within one of the Alpine valleys. This is slightly further along than some of the areas I've started developing with some TGV lines. No towns as yet, just a working ski slope from a previous episode. So I'm going to start basically digging into this natural landscape using the terracing method that you see quite often with open cast iron ore mines. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to start stripping the vegetation away. It's going to look a little bit odd if the trees go down into the mine. We can add them back around the edges later on. So let's give a good space for ourselves, and then I'm going to take the terrain tools and the flatten tool, and I'm basically going to start picking the level. I'm just going to start lowering this a little bit. So we'll lower a level there, and we'll use the flatten tool and we'll pick, and we'll start terracing out with that level. And the idea is that we're going to cut and start building up terraces as if they had been cut out of the hill. So you can see we're going quite deep here, but it will make sense once we come around and start adding more levels. But we're just going to go around with this level first, and don't worry about the paint colors at the moment. It's obviously not going to be snow inside. If I just take that out to a point, I want to then demonstrate what we'll do next and how we're going to terrace this. So I'm going to take levels slightly higher around this height, and then we can maintain that and just take that up a level. So we're building up these flat terraces just like the photographs that we just showed, all the time taking care, because these tools can be a little bit dramatic if you don't pay attention to what you're doing. Don't go too chaotic with them. I'll carry on for a sec and I'll come back once I've done a couple more. So you'll be quite careful not to make the terraces too narrow, because we will want to drive vehicles along them, because we're going to use the big dumper trucks to give the impression that we are bringing iron ore up from one of the lower levels to where we're going to have a train station near the top. A substantial bit of this mountain, so this will be our iron ore mine. They've got quite a few layers to dig still, so it's not going to be a mine that's sort of spent. I'm basically using subtle coats of a couple of the different gravel colors to try and create that sort of earthy quarry look. There were a couple of very strong colors for the purposes of creating markups on the landscape, but they're a little bit too bright, so probably not best for this purpose. So just trying to blend in as much as I can. I think this looks fairly realistic. It's a little bit of work to do here and there. Maybe some of these we would join up a little bit. We can smooth these out so you can sort of see the process. It's actually a lot of fun. It's actually a little time consuming, I have to be honest. This has taken me a good 40 minutes to get to this point. So if you've got any other plans, you might not want to do this in a quick 10-minute session of the game, but this is definitely better than the built-in mine. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to start adding trees, which is basically the no dig line on the very edge. So this is a place where they've never actually disturbed yet. So we'll have a strong line of trees. You can see then what got this nice obvious hard edge. Just tidy up a bit where those trees coming into the dig areas. Just be a little easier on the brush than I am. So there we go, that's not bad. You can see how that's being cut out of the landscape. I've probably gone a bit too far with my existing TGV line. So I'm probably going to bring this back in. If I can find the right level. Which wasn't that, it's this. Just ease back a little bit. It probably wouldn't have gone so close to the edges of that line. So what we'll do is we'll just smooth out some of the edges of this, just to give it a bit more of a natural edge. Probably wouldn't have disturbed it so much. Then put a small line of trees back in. It's your canvas. You just decide if it looks right or not. Probably gone on the absolute maximum that they can go there. So what I'm going to do to make life a little bit more interesting, I'm going to put the area where they started digging this mine and where the train station is going to be at the top of the hill here. So I'm using the bulk loading station that I've used elsewhere for the coal, and you immediately see the scale of what I've dug out here when you look at the size of the station. So this is a huge mine. This is a huge operation nestled in the Alpine valleys here, and this is a 320 meter long platform. I could go up to 400, but I don't think the iron ore station at the steelworks is actually any longer than this. So I'm going to set down my station approximately at that location. I thought maybe it was going to be a bit of a tight fit, but now I've actually got an appreciation of the scale again. Yeah, this is huge. So it fits perfectly fine. That's the red color that I was looking for. Couldn't really find anything in the workshop that was that sort of tone. So we're going to develop a line from this location through this valley and try and join our cargo lines that we've already established for the coal. And you can see one of the coal trains, the game is paused in its way to the steelworks there. So that would be the next step. So we'll take the line. We're going to have diesel trains, so we won't have any catenary. And we're going to try and find what would be the best route for a single track through this valley. So I imagine we're going to have a lot of tunnels, a lot of bridges. Don't know if I've already lost the plot in this game when it comes to realism, whether we've gone past that point a long time ago. But I'm going to try and hug it as much as possible to keep it as natural as possible and not just build a straight line through, and try and develop the line as if it has actually involved some engineering and some real world thinking as to how we can get through. So it's just a combination of pulling it out to where you see a bridge, pulling it back from where you see a tunnel. So those are the two things we're effectively trying to avoid where possible. And just for my own sanity, I'm going to just pull back on some of the trees for the time being so that I can see what we've got. Some of these white trees were less successful in the snow, so we're heading for that area. So we're probably going to try and come across this sort of zone in the landscape. That feels about right. That's a lot steeper than I thought it was going to be. So we'll probably hug back along this hill. So let's pull back this line. Speed limit's not the primary concern at this point. Just getting out of the valley would be a good thing. So I think a bridge there is fine. So we'll try and hug along this line. Is there any way to avoid a bridge there? Don't think there is. So that's fine. again here. Crossing the ravines and the gullies as we come down from the hills. This we might get away with using an embankment. Yeah, I think that looks realistic. I think at this point we do have to go through a tunnel to come out. Just need to be quite careful where we come out so that we don't enter on a huge bridge. Don't think we can avoid it there. We do need to start getting down to this level eventually, probably after we've gone around the side of the hill. I don't think this would be double tracked. I think this is a huge feat of engineering. I think it's going to be limited, but that's fine. I don't anticipate running more than 2 trains, I would say. So I'll keep going. So this is where the line connects up to the main goods line, just near to the coal terminal, which we developed last week. It goes under the auto route, under the passenger line that climbs into the hills, comes out of a tunnel. We just need to make sure that we clear our bushes away from the track. Come back and do the track edges later. Bit of a steep cutting along the top of my vineyards. The vineyards I'm going to continue along this valley once I've stopped cutting railway lines into there. Short tunnel into another bridge. Plug in the edge of the terrain as we go around, starting to climb up into the hills. Short tunnel, then out the other side onto another bridge, again steadily climbing up. A few more tunnels, climbing up all the time to get into the really steep mountains on the edge here. So gained quite a lot of height here at this point. Just make sure that those bushes are off the track. Then quite a substantial bridge across these gullies into a tunnel, and then we're basically then through this small pass that leads into the mountains proper. So this is quite a tortuous route to get to the iron ore mine, and it's going to take a train quite a while, especially when fully loaded. So I don't anticipate there being too many trains running this route. Probably 2, because we've single tracked it as well. Maybe an opportunity that there's a couple of places we can put a passing point and then timetable the trains so that they can pass each other, say halfway through. That's probably what we'll do. That way we can try and get as much iron ore out of this place as we can. And so what I'm going to do is then with the tracks create a loop, minimum radius, that takes us back, joins us back onto that main line. So that's the basics of it. We're also going to have a lot of assets with iron ore wagons in place as well, as is the usual thing when I create my stations. Because this is a sandbox, we're just going to spend millions on the assets and nice little yard tracks as well, so I can have a little play with this area. If you didn't realize, with the new update you can do built-in Y switches now, Transport Fever, so you can take 3 tracks of 1 point position. We've got some yard tracks built there. We'll develop this a little further. Not done yet by any means. I'd like to start developing the route for getting the iron ore out of the mine up to where the station is using our mining trucks. So at the very bottom of the mine, I'm just going to build a small cargo station, and we're going to associate that with a couple of buildings at the bottom. So let's see what we've got in assets for that. So that sort of looks convincing, apart from maybe the fact that I don't have any cargo stations that don't have a bit of paved road to them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the streets that came from the ski resort that I built a couple of episodes ago, which are actually invisible. So whilst they're actually streets, they don't have any ground textures at all. So you can basically create a path for our mining vehicles to go up the mine. So I'm basically going to create a one-way route for our mining vehicles to work their way up this iron ore ziggurat. Just need to make sure that where we do ramp up, that we can smooth it out a little bit, just to take the edges off some of these slopes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start the mining vehicles at the bottom here, and they're going to work their way up, probably along here, and then climb gradually up to get to the top. So I'll show you what I've done once I've completed that first route. So that's our first route upwards with the invisible ski slope road. I'm going to create a station at the top now. Or rather, I'm going to use the built-in station that comes with the loading. So the trucks are going to drive up here. They will offload the iron ore, and then they're going to drive back down. So I need an alternative route, because these ski slope roads are one way. So I'm going to need to find another way down, probably around the back here, and then continue around. So I'll have a look at that route. So that will be where our trucks are going. And I've built a temporary road depot so that we can purchase the vehicles to run on the route. And I'm going to use these mod iron ore Caterpillar off-highway haul trucks, and I'm going to buy about 30 of them because it is quite a large route. Set them running on the iron ore trucks line. I'm going to use the timetable mod on that line. I'm just going to use an auto unbunch just to space them out. Once we set them running, this will take quite a while for these vehicles to sort of find their spacing. And they're actually really huge compared to the road depots, but the road depot is not going to exist once they're running. So these look really good. So they're following the invisible ski slope road, about twice as wide as the road, but for the effect that I'm trying to create, I think this is going to work fine. It's just a step up from the regular built-in industry mine, just gives it a little bit more realism, a bit more depth. We've got some cranes doing some busy work around the place. There were a couple of excavator mods that I tried, but they actually crashed the map, so I'm not going to have any big mining machines visible. But I think this will do. So we'll go ahead and set up a train route that's going to take the iron ore to the steelworks. So this should be fairly straightforward. Just 2 stations. Let's see what happens. Make sure we're going from the rail and not the road element of that station. We're going all the way through the valley, alongside the hills, till we join the track over here. And then we are going all the way to the steelworks. So let's see if it picks up the route in one go, or we have to do the usual game of encouraging it past various signals. The iron ore station in the steelworks is this one. And of course, it can't find the route. So as normally, we're going to have to interrogate where exactly it's failing. So it appears to be able to get from the iron ore mine to the steelworks. The bit there, which is grey, is fine. It's finding its way back that is the issue. So it's going the wrong direction for where we'd like it to go. So actually we do need to add some of the signals. I'd like it to go via that signal. Then we're bypassing the coal station. We need to be on this signal. And it's failing to find that signal, so I think we need a crossover switch at some point. By here will do. So that's good. It's coming into the iron ore station correctly. Exiting the iron ore station seems to be an issue. So we have an incorrect signal at that point. The signal's going one way in the wrong direction. We're actually trying to do one-way directions just out on this track. So let's see if we can add that as a way out. It'll help if I can see the signals to place them. There we go. Okay, so let's make it that far. Still not complete. So we do need to pick up some of the other signals. We need to get back onto these tracks here. So we have a problem getting between number 4 and number 5. I suspect it might be that not being a double slip switch. Which it was. I think I know what the next problem is. It's because we don't have a crossover or switch rather to exit the track back by the power station. So at this location I failed to introduce a switch. No, still a problem. Don't you just love doing this every single time? Okay, so it's a good step, we're getting there. Still hasn't figured out that it can return this track. So I've introduced a crossover point here in case I need it. So we'll get that far. So we're getting there. We're narrowing it down. It's going to be something very simple on the end, isn't it? Ah. Rookie mistake. I've put a one-way signal. That was it. I probably didn't need to go chasing my tail throughout the whole layout. But there we go. So that's fine. So that will work. So I'm going to use the classic French diesel locomotives. CC72,000s, because I really love the shape of the nose. And I'm then going to select the wagons with iron ore. And I've been using these in the assets, so I'm going to build a selection of these up. We've got 320 meters maximum. I'm going to work on around that basis. That should do. And we'll set it to our line, which is iron ore. Now to work out the timings for this train, I'm going to release it at 10 minutes on the timetable. 10 minutes is equal to 4 AM. So I'm going to run it as if its first one is at 4 AM, and then I'm going to see how it interacts with the other trains along its route. And then we'll set whether we need to hold it at any signals at any point to let the coal trains proceed first. So I'm just going to hold it at the front of the station. Because we have set our railway line up, we now are loading iron ore into our trucks successfully. So the chain is complete. At 10 o'clock, we've released the train. And we'll follow it along and make some key time-ins and see how it interacts with the timetables of the other trains. There's going to be a few situations where it's going dead slow to get around these tight curves. Otherwise it'll be cruising quite happily along at about 80 kilometers an hour at this point. We'll see if it actually gets above 85 in the valley. It would clear this crossover point by about 14 minutes. So I'll note that down. Pretty much flying along now that we've got to the river valley. Pass along the vineyards, making its way down. I've paused it at this point at 19 minutes on the timetable, so it's taken 9 minutes to get from the mine to where it's about to join the main line. And because I'm too stupid to work out one of the various other bits of timetables that I worked out for the other trains, I want to see whether this train is going to interfere with any other train at this point in the timetable, and I can't see anything that's on its way to coming down this part of the track at 19 minutes. So I think at this point in the timetable it will be clear to proceed. I can't see anything immediately in front of it either. There's a passenger train that's left, but this is already on the other track. So we're going to unpause it again, and I'm just going to monitor what happens in regards to the other trains on the timetable. So the only other trains are the 2 coal trains on the goods line at the moment, so I think we're good at this point. So still pretty clear at this point. Nothing behind it, nothing in front of it. I mean, this is very straightforward because we don't have that many freight trains running yet. It'll get more difficult the more lines that we run. So here's the coal train. Return to the coal terminal. So I won't interact with that at the steelworks because it's already left. So arriving into the steelworks. And it's going to go past the coal terminal and loop round to the iron ore station. So arriving into the iron ore station. So call that 29 minutes. So on its way back out. No interference. Nothing in the way. You can see in the background our container train that uses the TGV lines it's been down this track and exited just after. So we didn't interfere with that either. So we're seamlessly threading the needle so far. Passing the coal train. It's got some coal in it, so that's looking good. That was actually quite important that it passed at that point because the coal train comes down over this crossover. So we were far enough back that we didn't interfere with that. We'll be exiting the main line at 38 minutes. Arrived back at the crossover at 44. And now arriving back at the mine. It's quite good because it's basically one there and back cycle. So we'll probably get a second train that begins and ends its cycle from the steelworks. Now that we have the timings. So we'll call that an arrival at 47 minutes. So in the timetable mod, iron ore, we know that we want to leave the iron ore station in the morning at 10 minutes. So that means we'll put 9:30 into the arrival. And again, just make sure that the numbers you're entering here actually enter into here. Limo Exchange, which is the current name for the Steelworks Iron Ore Station, which I need to rename. We need to leave there at 29 minutes past. So if we keep to this schedule, this should mean that we run seamlessly with the other trains running on their own timetables. The problem is, this is basically a 60-minute cycle, so we'll need to work out a second train which starts and ends at the steelworks. What it does mean is that by the time this train leaves, it's going to be nicely full of iron ore, as the trucks have been dutifully carrying it up from the bottom of the mine. So hopefully we should leave with a full train. This might be a problem, however. Now that the trucks are full of iron ore, they're really struggling to get up my rocky ramps. I might have to soften their route a little bit. It shows how much the weight physics affects the vehicles in the game. Of course, I haven't tested any of these locomotives on their timetable tests with any loading at all, so it might throw the whole thing into a complete mess. We'll see. So in terms of the timetable, train number 1 leaves at 4 AM in the morning, which is equivalent to 10 minutes on the timetable, and then it leaves the hatched area, which is basically the single track zone, even though there is a small crossover, at 7:24, equivalent to 18 minutes 30 on the timetable mod. We'll start train number 2 at the steelworks. We'll leave at 10:30, so 30 seconds later. What this means is that by the time train 2 arrives at the main line exit, which is the big purple hatched area, train number 1 has already left. So we've basically got enough time for 2 trains to occupy that single track area without the other one interfering. And that's it, basically. That's all the capacity there is. Without that, we'd have to actually be using that crossover. And to be honest, I think we'll see how it goes. If we're not shipping enough iron ore, we'll see about what we can do to get more trains running through that mountain pass. But that's the principle that we're going to use for train 2 at the moment. So in terms of adjusting the timetable to allow for that second train, we will leave from the steelworks at an additional time of 10:30. So that's in. And an additional iron ore departure of 28 minutes 30. Which isn't going in at all. For some reason, every time I'm entering a number on this mod, there we go. Don't know why I didn't like 28 being entered. It's a bit temperamental, but also amazing. So I'm not going to complain. Brilliant. So that's it. The only thing I do want to check is how this interferes with the other trains that leave the station and along that line around the time in the same way, just so I don't start creating issues with that line before I've even added half of the trains that I need there. So we're coming up to the departure time of train number 2. I'm going to release it. I'm just going to check that it's not interfering with any of the other trains which are leaving the area at the same time. That's good news about Champigny. Our main cargo train that goes to Avignon leaves at around a minute or 2 afterwards. And that looks like we'll be on the main line before that train starts its departure. Yeah, I think we're good to go. It's clear. Horrendous rush hour traffic into Limoux, which I'll probably sort out at some point. Built a single tramway bus here. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. It's not in the way. It's the first coal train of the day. So we might have a problem. Here's our train number 2, and here's the junction where it's going to exit the railway, and all the way back here is train number 1. So I think we might have a slight issue in that train number 2 is going to end up blocking the way. So I'm going to make a slight adaptation so that it's double tracked for some of the areas just at ground level to enable the waiting to happen off the main line. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. So here we go. I've double tracked it from the main line and I've taken it up to this point where I've got a signal and I've got one-way signals on these points, so it's forcing the route to go up this side, down this side. So what that means is train number 2 on this line should hopefully be on this side of the track as this train passes. So we've given ourselves a little bit of a buffer to avoid any clashes, and where there is a clash to take it off the main line. So that was worth testing because I didn't want to have just trains backing up behind each other, which is what I always used to end up with playing a regular game. Just train after train after train, every signal block had a goods train in it, just lumbering forwards, trying to keep everything moving as much as possible. We can see train number 1 on its way down. They'll probably pass in the tunnel. The main thing is they're not going to stop. Possibly because train number 1's a little later than anticipated because of the weight of the train. Because obviously I tested it empty. And I'm not giving myself enough buffer time. A lesson learned there, probably, possibly. Perfect. So train number 1 has cleared the block. Train number 2 can proceed. It's almost as if working to perfection there. Not quite. Nearly. I did say nearly. So great. So in the next episode we're going to have some steel, hopefully. And with that steel I'm going to go and build a car factory, which I think is the sort of customer that would take steel by rail. And then from the car factory we're going to set up fiddle yards at either end of the map to export the cars to. So basically some areas hidden off map that will accept the cars and will kind of be off stage. And that's going to be a new thing for me to try. So some good suggestions in the comments I've had before about that. So I'll give that a go. So hopefully you will enjoy me next time, and hopefully you still have the transport fever, because I certainly do. Spending way too much time burning through my computer's resilience to meltdowns trying to keep this map going. But see you again.